Hi, friends. I'm Olivia. This is AV Club where I talk about horror, lit fic, weird books, whatever I want to talk about. And today I want to talk about two books that came out at about the same time that have very similar premises. I've seen this phenomenon in movies before, thinking back to when I was growing up and Ants and A Bug's Life came out at the same time. Armageddon and Deep Impact, stories that were clearly not copied from one another because of how long it takes to make a movie. But there must have just been something in the water because how did this happen so many times? There's no strings attached and friends with benefits. There's a shark's tale and whatever the other one was. Madagascar, whatever the other one was. It just, it happened a lot. But I haven't seen it happen so much with books. Like it'll seem like there are themes that go through trends. Like I know that hockey romances are really popular in the romance space right now, or cowboy romances. More in my neck of the woods, like dark academia goes through phases where it's really popular. However, I don't really remember two books coming out at the same time that had such similar premises until recently I read Fiend by Alma Katsu, and just today I finished The Captive by Kit Burgoyne. Fiend I have previously reviewed on this channel in a recent horror wrap-up, so go check that out if you're interested. However, it's a story that follows the middle sister in a very powerful family, the Barisha family, whose patriarch Zeph is very controlling over what's going on in the family, but it just seems like his company cannot fail. Anyone who tries to come up against his company, bad things happen to them. Other companies' buildings get destroyed in earthquakes, or other ruin comes to them. People are very threatened by the power that this family has, and it's something that the siblings have to deal with. That the oldest son is supposed to take on this business and be learning all of it. He's struggling because he wants to marry someone that is not the designated person that he has to marry for his family to continue their empire. We mostly follow the middle child, the sister who really wants to take over, but is struggling with the fact that because she's a woman, she's not the heir. And then there's the youngest daughter who is, you know, she's given no respect, really. She's both the youngest and a woman. She's kind of irrelevant to the passage of the company. So how is this company so powerful? Yes, it seems like a demon is behind it all. And wouldn't you know it, the captive follows a family who is very powerful, whose company cannot fail and no one comes up against them. And who is behind their power? A demon. So whereas Fiend, I felt like there wasn't that much demonic energy really in it. It mostly had to deal with the family dynamics, and with very few changes really could have been a fairly normal thriller. However, in The Captive, the demonic energy runs through every single page, and it is most akin to Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. And that's because at the very beginning of the story, we are dropped into a kidnapping. This leftist revolutionary resistance group, terrorist group, as some might call them, they are kidnapping the daughter and I guess heiress to this very powerful family. Unbeknownst to them, though, she is pregnant. She is very pregnant. And very quickly into the kidnapping, she has a baby, and this baby is weird. This baby can summon caterpillars. This baby is summoning hail, any threat to this baby, and that something bad is happening. So you know what you're getting into from the very beginning in terms of what capabilities this family has. However, I just thought it was so well written. This was actually written under a pen name from an author who is Booker Prize nominated. I haven't read any of his other work, but this was so good. I loved the group dynamics, the characters, how specifically the characters were written. Almost reminded me of 12 Monkeys or something like that. I loved being in the hideout with them. You feel both their passion for what they're doing as well as possible distrust that they can have. And Adeline, the woman that they kidnapped, is actually not so mad that she was kidnapped. She has been wanting to run away from her family because something very evil goes on in that house and she has been kept captive. She has another daughter that she has not been allowed to see, that has been kept separate from her because she is not submitting in the way that her family wants to do whatever dark demonic things are needed in order to keep their family so powerful. The group is initially skeptical of how involved she actually is or if she's lying to them to gain their trust. However, she is an ally to them in trying to get back at her family throughout the story, but her family just seems so untouchable. They have power over everything, around every corner, around every attempt that they're making. They are so worried about the security, the police, everything that her family seems to own. It just seems so unbeatable, which makes these characters so easy to root for. I thought it was so interesting to write a mother into the story, that she is so conflicted and she's just doing the best that she can for both of her children. Although, yeah, she's a little bit nervous about her new son, who does seem to be kind of devilish. So although these stories both start with a very similar premise about a very powerful business empire run by demonic energy, they end up being so different. Whereas Fiend really focused on being inside the powerful family and being a willing participant, I feel like that made it less nuanced than The Captive, which had a child who was trying to break out of it and was also taken so far removed from it because you're seeing it from the perspective of this resistance group who are trying to better the world in kind of revolutionary ways. But it also means that the family can feel a lot more evil because you're looking at it so obliquely. Whereas in Fiend, I wasn't really sold on them being that evil because we're following the characters and they just seem normal. So, in the battle of the two similar premises, yeah, The Captive wins for me, and I hope that I see other people talking about this soon because I think it was really good. But I'm curious, is this something that you've seen in books before, that there are books with very similar kind of uncanny premises that came out at the same time? Because it's different than just a popular trope, and similar books coming out in popular tropes at the same time. I'm not aware of any demon powered business book coming out any time prior, much less coming out so close together. So please, if you have any more instances of this, I would love to know. I think it's a really interesting phenomenon. I was already interested in it with the movie phenomenon about movies coming out at the same time, like Jobs and Steve Jobs. That one, not as weird because it was like Steve Jobs had died and then people wanted to make a movie about him, I guess. Uh But the other examples where it was like something that was such a novel premise and they just came out at the same time, kind of weird. But thank you for joining me today. I will be back again very soon to talk more horror, litfic, weird books, whatever. Until next time, bye.